All right, let's dive into one of medicine's most complex and stubborn puzzles, fibromyalgia. For decades, it was just this cloud of mystery and, honestly, a lot of misunderstanding. So in this explainer, we're going to trace its incredible journey, from something that was often dismissed as just being all in your head to what we now know is a very real neurosensory disorder.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What if your body had a pain alarm and it just never, ever shut off? An alarm that's blaring 24/7 all over your body. And the wildest part? It gets triggered by things that shouldn't hurt at all, like a simple hug. For millions of people with fibromyalgia, that isn't some hypothetical question. It's their daily reality.
Okay, so let's get right into it. What does it actually feel like to live with this condition? Because let me tell you, it's so much more than just pain. It's this relentless cycle that can honestly take over every single part of a person's life.
Think of it like four cornerstones holding up this whole condition. First, you've got that persistent, widespread pain. And we're talking pain on both sides of the body, above and below the waist. It's just everywhere. Then there's the fatigue. And listen, this is not your everyday I'm tired. This is a profound, bone-deep exhaustion that just settles in. On top of that, you have cognitive problems, what's famously called fibrofog. You know that feeling of trying to think through molasses? Yeah, that. And maybe the cruelest part of all? Sleep brings zero relief. You can sleep for 8, 10 hours and wake up feeling like you haven't slept a wink.
And this right here is why fibromyalgia has been so difficult for so long. It's the very definition of an invisible illness. A person can be in absolute agony, but you run every test you can think of, blood work, x-rays, MRIs, and everything comes back normal. There's nothing to see, nothing to point to on a chart. And you can just imagine the frustration of being told everything looks fine when you feel anything but. It's been a massive source of dismissal for so many patients.
So that begs the question, right? How does a condition with no visible proof, nothing to see on a test, finally get taken seriously by the medical world? Well, as you're about to see, it was a long, hard road.
And when I say long, I mean it took over a century. Way back in the 1800s, it was just vaguely called muscular rheumatism. Then, in 1904, it got the name fibrositis. Now that itis at the end means inflammation, which was totally wrong, because they could never find any. It took until 1987, for the American Medical Association to officially say, okay, yes, this is a real illness. And the first official rules for how to actually diagnose it didn't even come out until 1990. And this quote, wow, it just says it all. For so long, when doctors couldn't find a physical cause, it was dismissed as a psychological problem. It became what's called a wastebasket diagnosis. That's a term for when doctors have run all the tests, can't find anything, and just toss the symptoms into this bucket labeled fibromyalgia. It wasn't a real diagnosis. It was a label for the unexplained. And it did absolutely nothing to make people feel seen or validated.
And all of that leads to this next number, which is just staggering. 5 years. That's the average amount of time a person suffers before they finally get a correct diagnosis. Can you even imagine that? Half a decade of being in pain, getting shuffled from one specialist to another, probably getting misdiagnosed, all while being told, we can't find anything wrong with you.
But here's the thing. Today, we know something is wrong. We finally understand that the problem isn't in the muscles or the joints where the pain is felt. The problem is in the control center and how the central nervous system processes pain. So now, we're going to shift gears from the history to the biology of what's really going on.
The big idea here, the absolute key to understanding fibromyalgia, is a concept called central sensitization. What that means, basically, is that the central nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, the body's main computer, gets stuck in a state of high alert. It becomes hypersensitive, taking normal everyday signals and just amplifying them, cranking them up into pain.
This is honestly the perfect way to think about it. Imagine your nervous system has a volume knob for everything you feel: touch, temperature, even light and sound. In fibromyalgia, that knob is cranked up to 11, and the dial is broken. It's stuck on high. So a gentle pat on the back can feel like a punch. This is so important to get. It is not imagined pain. It's very real pain. It's just being generated by a nervous system that's miscalibrated.
So what's causing that volume knob to get stuck? Well, a huge part of it comes down to brain chemistry. You can think of it like a car. You've got chemicals that act like the gas pedal for pain, things like substance P and glutamate. And in fibromyalgia, those are being floored. Their levels are way too high.
And then you have the chemicals that are supposed to be the brakes, like serotonin and norepinephrine, and their levels are way too low. So you've got way too much go and not nearly enough stop. The whole system is just out of whack.
And listen, this isn't just a theory. We have proof. Scientists have actually measured this stuff. They've found that the levels of substance P, that's one of the main gas pedal chemicals for pain, are 2 to 3 times higher in the spinal fluid of people with fibromyalgia compared to people without it. This is real, physical, measurable evidence that something biological is truly going on.
Okay, so understanding the science is huge. It's validating. But for anyone living with this, the real question is, so what can I do about it? And that's where the story gets hopeful. Because while there isn't a cure right now, there is absolutely a path forward, a way to manage this and get your life back.
And this right here is the modern message for fibromyalgia. It's not about finding some magic pill that makes it all go away. The real goal is about having a toolbox, a whole strategy to manage the symptoms, to reduce those flare-ups, and most importantly, to empower you to feel like you're back in the driver's seat of your own life.
The best way to do that is with a multi-part plan. It's not just one thing, it's several things working together. Step 1 is just education. You have to understand what you're up against. Step 2, and this is a big one, is graded exercise. That means starting slow and building up carefully so you get stronger without causing a flare-up. Then you've got therapies like CBT, which are amazing for helping with the mental side of chronic pain. And finally, yes, there are targeted medications that can help rebalance some of that brain chemistry we talked about.
Now, this part is so important because it's all about what you can do to take back control. We're talking about things like gentle, consistent movement. It's absolutely crucial. Making sleep a priority, really getting your sleep hygiene on point. Using tools like cognitive behavioral therapy to literally rewire how your brain responds to pain signals. And of course, managing stress and learning how to pace yourself. It's all about learning what your body needs to keep that sensory volume knob from flying off the handle.
It's also really important to see that not everyone experiences this the same way, and the outlook can be different. Researchers have sort of identified a few groups. You have adaptive copers. These are people who find ways to manage their symptoms really well, often without a ton of medical help. Then there are folks who are interpersonally distressed, and they tend to do much better with counseling and stress reduction. And then the toughest group is what they call dysfunctional, where the pain and anxiety are very high. It just goes to show how deeply connected our mental and physical health really are.
And that really brings us to our final thought. The story of fibromyalgia is such a powerful reminder that there are so many people out there fighting these huge battles that are completely invisible to the rest of us. So it leaves us with this question, and it's not just for doctors, it's for all of us. How can we get better at supporting people with invisible illnesses? How do we learn to believe, validate, and support someone whose suffering isn't in a cast or on an X-ray, but is absolutely real in every single nerve of their body?